Some people just stand out in a crowd, excellent at their craft, excellent in their thinking, and they're not hard to find because they stand out. My name is Joe Crenshaw, and I'm looking for TheStandOuts. All right, thanks so much for coming again. So glad you guys are here. We have my friend Tim Wright here. Tim, glad you're here. Appreciate you coming.
Yeah, glad to be here. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yes, sir. So a couple things about Tim, and I'm going to let him do most of the talking here, but I'll just give a high-level overview of who he is, what he does. So professionally, what I know is that he started in enterprise rent-a-car, kind of built his way up in that. Now he's a chief marketing officer. I'll let you talk about that as well. And then also has his hand a little bit more on some passion projects with videos and live interviews. So kind of give a little more thorough background on some of your professional life.
Yeah, well, so it's been going on for about 28 years now. I've been right out of college. Like you said, I worked at Enterprise Rent-A-Car. The beauty of Enterprise is that everybody started off as a management trainee, and even the president and the CEO of the company were trainees at one point. So in 18 years that I worked there, I was able to work my way up through management, and I actually worked at our corporate office in St. Louis, worked overseas in our expansion project, and then in 2000 there was an opportunity here to come as a regional vice president, which I did, and that's when I moved my family here. It was small at the time. My family was grown a little bit since then. But did that until 2007, and then I had an opportunity to do something different yet similar in the sense that it was still about building a team and in a leadership role, and that was working for ASR Alternative Investments, which was which still is. I still am involved in this company, which is a wholesale financial company. So everybody has their financial planner. Well, the products they sell, they get them through wholesalers, and whether that's mutual funds or alternative investments, and we have an alternative investment, a life settlement strategy that we use, and we've been in business for 13 years and have done over $1 billion of that. So
awesome.
Yeah.
So with that, I want to back up just because I think there's something that we can all get from you. You talked about enterprise and your history with enterprise, and right. So from a trainee, like entry level as you can be, all the way escalated to regional vice president. So how, as an employee, right, there's unique things about you that escalated you to that level, right? So speak to what you think was imperative in that process to help elevate you to that position.
Yeah, when I left college, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew it had something to do with business, and I tripped into Enterprise, had no idea. This is when Enterprise Rent-A-Car was a really small company. And the one thing they kind of imparted in you very early on was your ability to take ownership in what you do. And that was something I grew up with. My parents taught me that, my dad especially. And so that kind of came easy to me, but it was really hard work. You know, Enterprise Rent-A-Car, you're doing everything, including washing the cars when you're a management trainee. So it's not what you think you're going to be doing out of college.
Yeah.
But soon, through hard work, that pays off. And I think being coachable, you know, I was really fortunate to work for some really incredible people at Enterprise that went on to lead the entire company, and they taught me so much. And I think in today's world, I think a lot of younger kids especially feel, the millennials maybe even feel that they need to figure it out on their own, you know, and being coachable and being open and being moldable is a really important part. I think I attribute a lot of that to my success at Enterprise.
Yeah, and so I know in your and my conversations, a lot of, you know, within each of your roles, right, in the various roles, there's some consistent themes about you that you're really passionate about. And one of them you just mentioned is, right, you know, what can create success is being coachable, but also work ethic and being really diligent and stick to it and stick to the project, right? So speak to kind of where some of that comes from and how that's played out in your career.
Yeah, so and just for an example, in 28 years, I've basically done two things, right? I've done Enterprise Rent-A-Car and I've done ASR Alternative Investments. And I just feel if it's worth doing, do it right. That's kind of my mantra.
Yeah.
And if you love something enough to do it right, you're going to probably stick around for a while and work through it, as long as there's opportunity there. And so having an opportunity to grow, if that's available to you, I mean, my advice is always, let's stick it out. Unfortunately, we live in an environment today in a society where we just want to jump around a lot.
Yeah.
And when you really play that math out over a period of time, you don't always get ahead. You might have different experiences, but you don't always get ahead. So there's something, in my opinion, to sticking it out and really working hard for something.
Yeah, no, that's good. And so one thing I know now that's kind of an exciting thing for you is this new passion project and initiative. It's the VidBio, right? So life interviews. So if you would give us just what is VidBio, what is a life interview, and then for you, I know there's some really particular passions ingrained in that for why this is a passion project for you. So just speak to that, if you will.
Well, this idea, and we'll get in all the details, we don't have time for that, but this idea started about 4 years ago. And in my careers, I've interviewed over 3,000 people. And I've had a passion for video. I've never done it on a commercial level or high-end production level, but I've always been involved with editing and cameras. And so I got to a point where I wanted to follow my passion. Everybody says, it shouldn't be work if you love what you do. And I came up with this idea that there should be an opportunity for people to share their entire life story. So we started, Chris and I, my partner, started a company. It's called VidBio Films, and it's the America's first there's nobody else that does this, first film production company that's fully dedicated to life interviews.
Yeah.
And a life interview, it's pretty simple, but yet complex, one of those things. A life interview is about an hour and a half to 2 hour, 60-minute style interview, not too dissimilar from this actually, where we basically walk you through, or you walk us through, your entire life. There's about 25 chapters, 75 to 85 questions, childhood all the way to present day. We talk about the future. But the best thing about the life interviews is that we talk about life lessons, we talk about advice, we give information to future generations. By the way, the viewers of this are family. This isn't a YouTube video. This is something that you can archive and go back and watch whenever you're needing something from your father or your mother. These are, there's humor involved, there's emotion involved.
Yeah.
It's really an unbelievable process that we take people through. It takes about 2 or 3 weeks to get ready for the big day. And once you sit down and you do this life interview, it takes about 2 hours, and it's just been phenomenal. One thing I'll add to that is it's kind of inexplainable that this happens, but in our race, the human race, right, we rarely sit and talk about our entire lives. It probably never happens, really.
Yeah.
I used to say 1%. I don't think it happens
never.
1%. So to have a conversation from what my childhood was like all the way to what's going on in my life today and everything in between is really, really rare. But when you think about the number one thing that people would say that they care the most about is their family, bar none, right? When you stack it all up, my family, I love my family the most of anything else. But yet we go on these vacations and we go on and have these adventures and we spend holidays together. But most people, because we asked this question after life interviews, most people would say that they've only shared up to 50% of the information with their family with regard to their life interview. So it's an interesting, that's really what I'm passionate about, sharing those stories.
So I love that. And honestly, even just now, right now, as I'm listening, like, it's inspirational in such a way that, like, with my grandparents, right? Like, there's so much value that my grandparents had to offer just in the stories. And I know stories, capturing stories is a really big buzzword in today's culture. And really important. And so now there's holes, right, of things that I don't know about my grandparents that could provide so much life value for me.
Right.
And so if you would just talk with like what you see the value of the generational impact, I guess, if you will, of capturing these stories and then continuing them on throughout the generations in the family.
So I have a strong belief that we have a breakdown in our society when it comes to communication, knowledge being passed down.
Yeah.
And right now, unfortunately, most of our I wouldn't even say kids, but they were 20s or 30s, we're learning most of our information and wisdom from the internet.
Yeah.
We're watching YouTube videos, we're playing games, we're doing all this stuff. And so for me, the impact is that we can hear, and our kids can actually hear from their parents, their grandparents, their great-great-grandparents on what made them tick. Because, you know, we go through these challenging times in life. Well, what if our grandparents went through this?
Yeah.
And our parents went through this, and they did go through it. And we can learn from their mistakes, so we're not we're not having to deal with that same thing. So that to me is the biggest thing. That transfer of knowledge from one generation to the next. There's a lot of times where I'll tell people to get them comfortable before a life interview. Pretend that I am your great grandson that you've never met. I've come back in time to have this conversation with you.
Yeah.
And that's really what it's all about. Transfer that information.
Yeah, and what's so cool about that, as you're saying that, is just you're transitioning where the source of this knowledge and value is coming from, because now it's not like, just sitting there on a computer or on a phone or games or whatever, all this mindless stuff. The source is the transition, but it's through the same vehicle, right? So
That's
it's
right.
media, through video. So
Yeah.
you're able to use the things that they're comfortable with to absorb information, but more change the source and what the content is, which
that's
is
right.
so cool. So one thing with that, I think for us as a community, right, a lot of our goal just in being others focused is how can we create opportunity for you? So I know professionally, but also just with this passion project, right, there's a lot of things that you would see as opportunities. So if we were to try to create opportunity for you, what does that look like?
Wow, we're starting. We've started our business. September 17th was our kickoff, and we've done a number of these as prototypes to get ready, and now we're in full swing. And so, I guess if anything, if you have someone who you love, which everybody does, and
it's an easy one.
And you want to capture that story, because the sad thing is, once somebody goes from this beautiful earth of ours, their stories go. And so if you have people out there that are interested in sharing and capturing those stories for generations to come, I mean, right now, the Passion Project, VidBio Films, that's really what we're looking for,
Yeah, that's great. Well, thanks so much
Thank you for having me.
Really glad to be able to share your story, and thank you guys for watching as well. Super thankful for y'all viewing, and we definitely look forward to seeing you guys again. So thanks, Tim.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.